Mom, I want a BMP-2. We got BMP-2s at home, and that is the VZ-68. Tier A Premium Czech light tank. It's actually smaller than a BMP. Doesn't have the infantry fighting compartment in the back, carrying a squad of 6 or 8. So they could poke out their AKs through this little hole and see through the vision ports and shoot, but it's a bigger caliber, twin 50mm autocannons compared to a single 30. Doesn't have the rockets, the AT4, AT5s, but it is a light tank. It's not an IFV. That's what the BMP stands for, but we're talking way too much about the BMP. It's not a bad looking vehicle. It is obviously more intimidating than the VZ-64 that we recently covered, but this thing plays more like a medium tank. It plays like a fast medium tank with an autocannon or autoloader, but deals tons of damage to no armor targets like Scorpion Gs, Su-130PM, Boresk, ELC EVN-90, the back end of heavy tanks. Yeah, it's an autocannon. It is scary. It's also a premium, so hopefully this vehicle will debut along with the actual tech tree, unlike the Grom for the Polish tank destroyers that got delayed by like 6 months. We still don't have it as of recording this video, but it's not a bad looking vehicle, right? It's like a medium tank, large medium tank, somewhat like a HWK-30 or the PT-76, the LTS-85 they call it, but it's a PT-76 with a bigger gun and a bigger turret, but not a bad looking vehicle. It's a medium tank, practically. It's a assault light tank, if that's a thing, but deals the damage with a twin barrel 50mm autocannon. So very nice looking. It's almost like a AMBT, American medium tank or so. So the design of this vehicle is very streamlined, very modern-esque of 1970s era ish or 80s, but penetration is 180mm and deals 8 damage per shot. It's only 100 rounds compared to 140 on the 37mm for the VZ-64, but deals more damage by 33% compared to 6 alpha damage. Gold shell does penetrate, so 240 compared to about 220. So damage drop off is not half compared to the VZ-64. It's actually a little bit better for the gold shell. So premium tank bias. The shell velocity for high explosive is slower compared to the VZ-64. Does deal 14 alpha damage for the high explosive round, so theoretically the same burst potential for high explosive clip if you mag dump into a Rheinmetall Borsig or Scorpion G, right? That's pretty good, but does penetrate better at 50mm compared to 37. So yeah, be aware of this vehicle when you're driving a paper armor tank. You will be vaporized. Accuracy is still about the same as with the VZ-64. Aim time is slightly better by 0.1 seconds. So it takes slightly longer between each shot. 0.04 compared to 0.03, but 6 degrees gun depression, 20 elevation. Not as good as a 10 and 25 on the VZ-64. 1,600 rounds, about 600 less than the smaller caliber on the VZ-64. That's fine. 3-man crew. Top speed is not that great. It's actually bottom of the barrel. It is a medium tank's top speed. Only 53. 21 kilometers per hour going backwards. That seems about average, but 25 horsepower per ton ratio, also not as good as a 28. So combat light tank, not really a light tank, right? So more in line with a Bulldog or I will say HWK-30, but that thing is actually fast to rev. It's big though, somewhat. Hull traverse, turret traverse, medium tank, not really a light tank. Does have slightly more health by like 50, but that's not much. 30 at the hull front and 20 for the rest. Has no armor, so you can actually penetrate itself with the 50mm high explosive rounds. Camo is not half bad. View range about average, slightly below average. Radio is standard. So combat light tank. It's not a actual light tank, right? It's not fast. It has the same mobility as a medium tank. A fast medium tank at that, but it's fast to rev compared to a medium. Top speed is more like a medium. So DPM is not bad, but it's about the penetration. Has better pin for the AP round, for the high explosive, and the gold shell too. The gold shell doesn't have 4 alpha damage, so it's like the 50% drop compared to the 37mm. So that's 6 to 3. This is 8 to 5. So theoretically, has a better gold shell, slightly, but you're still dropping the DPM dramatically if you're using gold shell, right? Still about like 1,300 DPM, which is not great. So don't spam gold like a scum unless you're shooting like a mouse or something in the sides or rear, but meh. Health is okay. It's still a light tank. Weighs about 20-ish tons with equipment, but yeah, mobility feels like a medium tank. A very fast medium tank, but still a medium tank. It's not the most nimble of lights. Camo is still decent. Still better than Bulldog. That's still fine. So play this thing more passively compared to its brethren, the VZ64. You're not as nimble to scout. You have a bigger chassis to be shot at, so bigger area to get hit. That's why the ELC EVN-90 is such a menace. It's so small to hit. But this is a medium tank. This is not really a light. It's a fast medium, but still a medium. Stock. Actually, this thing has a stock picture of the stock gun. I'll show you, but shell velocity is actually okay. 800 meters per second, 1,000 for the gold shell. So it's slightly slower than the VZ64, I presume. Jumping back to the yesterday's video, VZ64, slower. Yep, it's slower for the shell velocity. But it's a bigger caliber gun, so okay, that's fine. It's a premium tank, 50mm autocannon, yada yada. Rounds per minute is 1,650, I presume. So less rounds per minute compared to the 37mm on a tech tree version. But yeah, not that bad. Rounds per minute, 1,650. So bigger caliber gun, fires slower. Top speed is still wonky, right? It's still a medium tank, but wolf packing with this thing is crazy when you think about it, especially against armorless targets. 50mm of pin is not that bad. Not really. If this thing has like 100mm pin, high explosive, that is crazy. So this is the stock picture of the stock gun. It's originally planned for the tech tree, not really for the premium shop, right? This thing has a, looks like a 30mm autocannon, maybe 37, but they removed it. Removed this gun, and you should update this picture. They don't have, they don't have the fit. It has 50 now. It doesn't have to. Okay, okay. So what's also interesting is it has the better pin, right? And normally you would think, yeah, 180mm penetration for AP round is pretty good for a light tank at tier 8. But when you really think about it, the actual 30mm on the BMP-2 can only penetrate at 15mm of armor or 25mm of armor, right? That's the APDS-T with a tungsten round. Only 25mm. Now on paper, 25mm is no armor, paper armor, but that's actually about 2 thumb width of armor. 2 centimeters of armor. That's your 2 thumbs put together of inches of, or 1 inch of steel armor. That is also pretty thick for a machine gun to go through, but in World of Tanks perspective, this thing could penetrate a Tiger's front go through the vehicle and penetrate the rear if possible. 180mm of pen for AP round on a machine gun? That is crazy. So, yeah, combat light tank, combat. So, we already have the PT-76 with a bigger gun in the LTS-85. So, large vehicle. The size of this thing is big. Even though it has the... No, it doesn't really that good of a camo, but... Yeah, mobility-wise, horsepower per ton ratio is not bad. Better top speed. Has actual decent armor against high explosive. Not on the sides though, so you could pin better with the 50mm high explosive rounds. But, it's a combat light tank. It's slower. It's dramatically slower to rev and top speed wise than its brethren, right? Yeah. VZ64, that's a stock value. Yeah. It's 28 and 60, so it's slower. Dramatically slower in my comparison for a light tank. 53 for top speed. That is kind of if. Same goes with the horsepower per ton ratio. It's not as bad. Granted, it's not as bad as the Bulldog, so definitely not as bad as 20 or something. It's 32 on the actual American Bulldog, but the German Bulldogs are slow. Chinese Bulldog is a little bit faster than the German Bulldogs, but I don't have it. It's still in the bond shop. I could get it, whatever, but I don't wanna. So Chinese Bulldog, how fast is this? 31, never mind. It's still faster to rev. It's a smaller caliber. It's a 76 compared to a 90, but still 32 compared to 20 is dramatically different. So this vehicle plays more like a medium tank. Definitely plays more like a medium tank. You could spot, but the size of this thing, it's practically a medium. So equipment wise, like all light tanks, you generally want the same loadout, so preferably for spotting, but this might be a rare scenario where you want to focus on somewhat mobility and maybe even accuracy or vertical stabilizer, right, to help out with the shots. So you could replace maybe the camo, the low exhaust system for turbocharger to make it go faster. So maybe you should load this thing out as a medium tank. But you cannot fit a rammer, obviously. Unless that's crazy. If you can fit a rammer to this thing, then that would be crazy. There's no rammer. There's no rammer for machine guns. You don't need enhanced gun lane drive. You're just spewing out the shells. You're mag dumping, so no enhanced gun lane drive. I would say this thing is so good, the commander vision system, to help out with counter light tanks, but you already have crappy cam. You already have crappy mobility, and the view range is not as good. The camo is alright, but you'll still be outspotted by the ELC EVN-90. So I would say cater more towards playing as a medium, maybe, right? You could theoretically spot, but you're not going to outspot their light tanks if they're solely, purposefully kitted out for spotting, like a ELC. So I would say still the commander vision system, that's still very good. 20% negation of foliage, very good. Maybe a turbocharger and optics, but this one's up to you. This one's more of your play style. If you feel a little bit more passively with this vehicle, use the camo low exhaust system, but if you feel like more of a medium tank, use the turbocharger. So it's up to you, but the mobility of this vehicle is not that good in terms of top speed. Top speed is not that great, not really. So play it more like a medium tank. Yeah, definitely play a little bit more like a this thing. Look how big this thing is compared to this or even this, right? It's so big. It's practically a medium tank. But field mods wise, the same field mods generally. Better top speed than engine power. Definitely better top speed. Your top speed sucks on this vehicle. Give it better top speed. To prove a point. Just to prove a point. By stats, by top speed of Tier 8 light tanks, God, it's slower than the normal mode on the Lynx. Top speed is not great. It's the bottom of the barrel, dead last of top speed. So you're playing a medium tank. Let's see, top speed of freaking medium tanks. Some of them are very quick. Alright. Yeah, about the middle of the pack, like with the T-44-100. So you have the top speed of a freaking medium tank. You play more like a medium tank. Now granted, the gun performs better with penetration, right? So you're playing as a sniping light tank, if that's the case. Opportunistic, going through a corner and mag dump. That's what you should do. Not really spotting or out-spotting other light tanks. Not really. So do it to your advantage. Perform with the gun, not with the view range. But accuracy or reload time, definitely accuracy. Reload time doesn't help out that much. Not really. It's about like 100 or so. So not even that close. Go with better accuracy. Accuracy is dramatic. 0.36 compared to 0.33 on the HWK-30. That is a big difference compared to only 100 DPM. Definitely accuracy. And finally, protection or reverse speed. If you're playing more aggressively with this vehicle, then possibly reverse speed, but protection is still good, right? You cannot afford to have your commander or your gunner or even the driver knocked out. You cannot really afford it. So if this thing sees more action, if this thing has a little bit more close range combat and more of a damage dealing role than its cousin, the VZ64, then I would say still better protection, right? You'll likely get hit, and it's a bigger size. I would still say better protection, but how does it compare to the VZ68 or VZ64 with the VZ68? This thing is a medium. This thing plays like a medium. This thing doesn't play that much like a light tank. It could perform the roles of a light tank, but it's not fast. So spot just in front of your mediums or heavy tanks. They'll provide support, whereas other light tanks, they could just roll out on their own and spot the field and just run away because they're fast enough. This vehicle is not that fast to run away, right? This thing is 72. Holy crap. I'm doubting this thing. Yeah, this thing runs away fast. Even though it's big, it runs away fast. So you're not that fast to run away. You are more of a combat light tank. Even this thing has 64 kilometers per hour top speed. So you are more of a medium tank. Definitely more of a medium. You play more like a medium. Don't play like a light tank all the time. So play like this thing. Oh, 45. Ugh. Okay. This thing is slow in comparison, but this thing should be fast. Yeah, this thing's fast. So you are more of a light tank in comparison. The closest horsepower per ton ratio and top speed is T-44-100? Yeah, close. It's close to this thing in terms of mobility, but this thing has very good terrain resistance, so it doesn't get bogged down. But horsepower per ton ratio and top speed kind of matches this thing, so you are more of a medium tank. And the gun will still melt a lot of paper armor targets, right? This thing is about the gun, whereas the VZ64 is more about hybrid, the gun and the spotting. So it's still good as a medium tank. Does it perform as well as a light tank? That is up for debate, but it's still a premium, right? Still makes a credit and crew XP. I will still say 6.5. I mean, it's on par with the VZ64, right? It's on par. Just doesn't spot as well because the top speed is not as good. Cannot run away as fast, but the gun does have better penetration than the 37mm. So you'll have a better time penetrating tougher targets with normal AP round, and doesn't have the damage drop off as much as with the gold shell. Gold shell is 240 compared to 220. That is very big gap for tier 9s. Some of the tier 9s could be penetrated with 240 as opposed to 220. So that is a threshold for gold shell, but shell velocity is slower, so adjust to your targets. But yeah, this thing will still melt paper armor targets, especially if you're close range enough. This thing still has the 1400 burst with high explosive rounds, even though you only have 100 shells. But it's still scary to think about. But wolf packing with 3 of these, nuts. Yeah, you can focus on one vehicle. The other 2 will go to your rear and dump high explosive rounds, or even just dump normal AP shell, and they will pin. 180 is very good for rear ends. That is actually the old average penetration for medium tanks, with like 90mm or I think 90mm was about the standard for old mediums, like the Pershing or Pan KRs. Yeah, those old medium tanks have about 192. What about the T-44 100? Yeah, old premium tanks with old penetration. 190. Ugh. 190. So, yeah, close to the original average for Tier A medium tanks penetration, but you're wolf packing practically. With autocannons, you will melt Boresque. You'll melt any paper armor targets. So it's still fun. It is still fun to play with this thing. Just not as good as spotting, but who the hell needs spotting when you can kill stuff, right? So 6.5. Well, there you go, folks. The VZ68. So practically BMP-2 at home without the rockets, but very good still. And I'm excited. I love the Panzer 1C. I love the T7 combat car, even though the 50 caliber on that thing is not as good. The Browning machine gun. But yeah, the Ma Deuce doesn't perform as crazy as you would think. But this thing actually has the same alpha damage as the Ma Deuce, right? That would be funny if it's the case. Oh, hey, alpha damage. It has the same alpha damage as the 50 caliber Browning, machine gun. The Ma Deuce has the same alpha damage. Penetration is dramatically better than 27mm, but like I said, it's crazy how unrealistic if that's the case when APDS Tungsten 2 can penetrate only 25mm of armor. This thing could penetrate 180 with regular AP, going through a Tiger at the front and possibly through the back too. The rear end is like 60-ish millimeters or 50 on the Tiger. Just to prove a point. I need to make sure if it can actually fully penetrate a Tiger and shoot through the vehicle. How much is the rear armor of a Tiger? 80. Yeah, it could go through the front and possibly through the back. That is crazy. Well, there you go, folks. The VZ68. So, yeah, they'll put it. Please don't put it in a loot box. Please just give us this vehicle. People will complain if we put it in a loot box and gamble for this. Just let us have it, right? People will shell out like $50 for this vehicle. No question, but no more gambling, please. No more. So as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Get on to rock, get up to burn, stand with the pride and burn for your desire.